Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. We're kicking things off today with a story from the road, a prime example of why being generous can sometimes bite you right back. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. She asked for help, then insulted my generosity. I'm an over-the-road truck driver in America. I have a family to support, so I don't have discretionary income, and I'm as frugal as I can be. One night, I was pumping fuel into my truck when this woman drives up in the crappiest beat-up minivan I've ever seen. Her windows are down, and she's got 3 kids between 6 and maybe 10 years old in the van with her. She starts on this long-winded sob story about how my kids are hungry and we have nothing to eat and no money and we need gas to run from my abusive husband and we've been sleeping in the van for days, yada yada, you get the picture. At the time, my twins were maybe 2 or 3 years old and I couldn't imagine them going hungry. I told her I didn't have any cash. She pointed out that the truck stop has an ATM and I said, yes it does, but without money to withdraw on the other end, the ability to withdraw money means nothing. I told her to wait a minute and I'd see what I can do. I went into my food box for the week. I had some cans of beef stew, some ramen noodles, and some individual bags of chips. If you've ever been to jail in America, you know that's a hearty meal. I was giving her more than half of my own allotted food for the week. I was rationing half of my own weekly food allowance for this woman and her children. I thought I was doing the right thing. God, Allah, giant spaghetti monster in the sky would bless me for giving up half of my weekly food for this hungry family. I get out of my truck with the bag full of noodles, canned tuna, beef stew, and like 8 bottles of water. She says, "Oh, God bless you," when she first sees me getting out of my truck. Then she sees me reach back in to grab the shopping bag I just put together. I said, turning around to hand her the bag, "It ain't much, but it should help with the hunger pains till you get your situation figured out. There's some noodles, tuna, and water and stuff here for y'all." She deadbutt looked me right in the eye and said, "We don't eat that crap. We ain't that poor," and then drove off. Apparently that area of Tampa is full of junkies, and junkies are under the misconception that truck drivers make lots of money. But I couldn't help but laugh at the irony of the fact that she was begging for money and then told me she wasn't poor enough to eat the food I live off every day. Am I poorer than I realize? Bless y'all. Have a good night and a safe week. Just wanted to say that you were very kind to have even offered that. Most people wouldn't have. So I figured I'd forward you a thank you from all of the sane people. And our second story. Entitled customer reports me for wanting to go home after closing. So this story happened back in November last year, just after I started working at my new job. This story involves me getting told off and a written warning because some customer decided to be annoying. Yes, it was partly my fault too. I shouldn't have said what I said. Let me set the scene. It's 8:05 on an evening. The store closes at 8, my shift finishes at 9, but the hour in between the customers leaving and me finishing my shift is important because there's a ton of tidying up to do. Anyway, at 10 to 8, 5 to 8, and 8 o'clock, we make the announcement over the tannoy that the store will be closing. It normally goes something like this. "This is a customer announcement. Today our store closes at 8 o'clock, which is in 10 minutes' time. Please begin to make your way to the tills. Thank you for shopping at XXXXX." So anyway, it's 5 or 6 minutes past 8, and I can't start tidying up until all the customers have gone. I'm waiting for the last customers to finish shopping. Apparently, there's some people still shopping upstairs. My coworker comes over, and we're talking whilst waiting for the last customers. Anyway, I was joking around, and I go, "This is a customer announcement. The store is closed. Everyone get out because I want to go home." Not down the tannoy or anything, literally just to my coworker as a joke because the customers are taking ages and I have like 6 tills to tidy and bins to empty. My shift doesn't even end for another hour, so it's not like he's eating into my personal time. Anyway, customer comes around the corner just as I say that. I didn't know if he overheard me, but after I'm done checking him out, he asks for my manager. He tells my manager what I said, thinking it was directed at him. It wasn't. There was still other customers loitering around, and that's the story of how I ended up in the manager's office with a formal warning about being rude to customers. Oh, and the last customers didn't leave until like 20 past 8, and I barely got any of my jobs done. Yes, it was probably rude of me to say that, but I didn't mean for any customers to overhear. Also, don't ignore like 4 closing announcements and rock up to the till with a full trolley at 5 minutes past closing. Honestly, I wish when a store closed that the tills could just be shut down too. Someone comes up 5, 10, 20 minutes later, sucks. They should be told they can come back for it tomorrow. Entitlement rating, a solid 9 for 10. Some people just can't handle a joke. And our next story. Supervisor said, "No one's forcing you to stay." A couple of years ago, I worked at a hotel doing maintenance. I'll admit I wasn't all that good at my job, but I tried like hell and tried to learn all I could. I'd been starting to get miserable there. I'd been at the place for 2 years, and my supervisor was really starting to grate on me. But I got a 2-week break when my grandmother had an injury. I took care of her when I wasn't there, so I informed the hotel I would be gone for 2 weeks to make sure she recovers. They said it was fine. So I'm nearing the end of the 2 weeks. I was going back the following Monday and get hit up by my supervisor chastising me for not communicating with him, but instead chose to talk with the front desk manager because she cared enough to ask. He wanted to know when I was coming back. I said probably Monday. I was leaving myself a little wiggle room in case something else happened. He comes back with, "That's not definitive enough for me." Fine, see you Monday. I thought that was the end of it. Nope, thanks for the attitude, thumbs up emoji. Now, if he had left it at that, I still might have gone back when I was supposed to, but then he comes back with, "No one's forcing you to come back. If you're not happy here, quit." I stared at the message for a bit and thought, wow, I really am miserable there. Okay, so I sat down and wrote my resignation. Went in the next morning with my shirts and keys, had to explain why I was quitting twice, once to the FDM and then to the owners. They didn't want me to leave, tried to get me to stay. I told them my supervisor was the reason, owners wanted me to sleep on it, but my mind was made up. I thanked them for everything, tossed my keys in the shop where my supervisor's office was, and left. Supervisor tried to get me to come back too, but I simply told him to F off. If they had you go through 2 people to explain why you were leaving, I'm surprised they didn't try to offer you something to stay. And our last story. My neighborhood's vegan Karen tried to sabotage my truck with nails. I've lived in my suburban neighborhood for nearly 5 years, and I swear the most exciting things to happen here used to be block parties and the occasional lost dog. Our homeowners association's typically more concerned with matching mailboxes and lawn maintenance than dramatic showdowns. That all changed the day vegan Karen moved in. I knew something was off right away. She had this hyper-alert way of glancing at everyone's yard, sniffing the air like she was on a mission. A few weeks ago, a letter showed up in everyone's mailbox. The exact wording is etched in my memory. As a vegan runner, it's always hard for me this time of year when the weather starts warming up and folks start opening their windows. Several times a week, I'm out running around dinner time, and when people have their windows open, I can smell what they're cooking. I've noticed a sharp uptick in the smell of folks cooking meat, and it can be quite overpowering. Quite honestly, the odor is offensive, and I'm hoping our HOA community can have some empathy for its plant-based neighbors by closing their windows if they're cooking meat and only putting vegetables on their barbecue. I don't want to be a stereotype, so I won't go into detail about why the odor of cooking animals is offensive, but I encourage you to do your research and join the movement of people who are fighting back. This letter was classic Karen. She somehow managed to be polite and infuriating at the same time. It wasn't enough to politely ask folks to keep the smell down. She wanted us to literally stop cooking meat. The entire neighborhood erupted into hushed giggles, outraged eye rolls, and near disbelief that someone would demand this. One neighbor was so amused he actually started grilling zucchini in solidarity with Karen, but the rest of us, we mostly shrugged it off, figuring it was just another weird HOA drama that would fade away. After all, we live in a place where kids play basketball in driveways and people mow their lawns on Saturdays. Nobody's itching for conflict. Before Karen showed up, my approach to grilling was simple. Get out the charcoal, toss on some burgers or ribs, and enjoy an afternoon of flipping meat in the sunshine. But after reading that letter, I got a mischievous itch. It seemed like Karen was basically throwing down a gauntlet, and my inner contrarian couldn't resist picking it up. So the following weekend, I hosted what can only be described as a meat extravaganza. Barbecue, ribs, burgers, sausages, pork chops. If it once had a face, it was sizzling on my grill. I even invited a few friends over to make it a proper gathering. Windows wide open, the smell of barbecue sauce and hickory smoke drifted lazily down the street. It was glorious. Sure enough, right about the time the burgers were getting that perfect char, I spotted Karen jogging up the sidewalk. She paused in front of my house, and I kid you not, it looked like she'd just discovered I was burning down the Amazon rainforest or something. Her face twisted in horror, she glared, eyes narrowed as though trying to communicate telepathic disgust. I simply waved a spatula in her direction. She shot me a look that could kill, then sprinted away, presumably to continue her smell patrol of the neighborhood. The next morning, I headed outside to leave for work. As I approached my truck, I noticed something shiny on the pavement. Upon closer inspection, I realized there were 4 nails positioned perfectly behind my tires. It looked deliberate, like someone had laid them out to ensure a flat. Initially, I thought it might be random vandalism, but then my neighbor across the street sent me a text saying, "Dude, check this out," along with a short video clip from his Ring camera. The footage was crystal clear. Karen, at around 5 a.m., crouching behind my truck and carefully placing nails near each tire. I was furious. Not only was this dangerous, but it was also incredibly petty. I marched straight over to her place, phone in hand, ready to confront her. When Karen answered the door, I held up my phone with the paused Ring footage on the screen. "Care to explain why you're messing with my truck?" I asked. Karen's eyes went wide for a split second before she tried to feign confusion. I don't know what you're talking about." I tapped the play button, letting her watch the video of herself in full vegan ninja mode. She stammered something unintelligible and then slammed the door in my face. Not 10 minutes later, 2 cop cars rolled onto our street. Apparently, Karen had dialed 911, claiming I was threatening her because she was vegan and that I'd showed up at her door to harass her. The officers took my statement, and I showed them the same Ring footage explaining that Karen had placed nails under my tires. Both cops looked exasperated. One took me aside and said, "We'll have a talk with her. Obviously, this is way out of line." They gave Karen a stern warning about property damage, which, by the way, is a felony if done intentionally. She tried to twist it into me being mean to vegans, but the officers had zero patience for that angle. In the end, she received a scolding for misusing emergency services. The cops told her she could end up in real legal trouble if she continued this behavior. After that, they left, clearly annoyed at the wasted time. Since then, Karen refuses to make eye contact with me whenever she jogs past my house. She sticks to the opposite side of the street, and I see her glare resentfully at my grill from a distance. Our HOA, mortified by the drama, sent out a reminder that personal dietary preferences do not override property rights or justify vandalism. That memo became a neighborhood joke, with folks referencing it sarcastically whenever someone complains about anything trivial. Vegan or not, people who complain about what others are doing in their own homes really need to take a step back and look at their life choices. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.